I'll understand we're still waiting on a visa for Royce. Was he out here today?
He wasn't out today. He's trained quite hard the last couple days, and so we're just working through the process, and we'll react once we get that done.
Okay, and it sounds like, unless a miracle happens and you're able to get him up to Vancouver and back in 24 hours, you're really looking at him a week from now at the earliest.
Right, correct. The process is going to happen fast, so we'll see where we're at.
Okay. With Atlanta, it's a very different team right now than it was going into the break. Sure. How does that? What do you? You haven't really seen them in this mode. What are you expecting? What does this mean?
I mean, we're going to take a look at some games. I mean, sometimes they've played in a 5 and in the back, and a 3-4-3 or a 5-2-3. At times lately with the group, they've played more in a 4-3-3. So in terms of their structure and their shape, maybe they have options. In terms of the new players, we don't know exactly who's in and who's out, and you're trying to quickly over video getting tendencies of certain guys, things like that. What I think will be consistent is they compete hard. They're pretty expansive in their shape. Like, they really stretch out the width of the field, and they try to really open you up and spread the game out. They're disruptive in the defending side because they'll mark you up in midfield and they'll try to make things difficult. So, unless they completely change their approach to things, then we have some things here and there that we can probably take away and be mindful of. But a lot of this too for us is continuing to work on the things that we need to improve upon. Again, today was heavy with set piece defending, and the last couple of weeks have been on certain other phases of the game. So as we've been approaching the restart of the season, so I know the guys are just looking forward to just getting going again. Because you never want to be off for too long. So we're excited to be at home. Again, playing an Atlanta team that we certainly can't underestimate. They have quality. They've added some good players too, and a team that is, they were on a pretty good run, prior to the stop, and so we've got to also be mindful that they're a team that can find their form and certainly be dangerous.
Some of the guys they've lost are pretty big.
Yeah, I mean they've obviously done take it how you want, great job in the market. Over the years of finding talented players, moving talented players, replenishing with more talented players. So they've obviously been busy from that regard. They've obviously lost some key players in the stretch, but I know them and I know the guys that are over there that are finding players. They're going to find quality players to fill the roles that have been left. So I don't think we can ever underestimate that they'll still find their way and they're still going to be a good team.
You talked a lot about the final 10 games going into the playoffs, but here you have the final 8 going in.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on how you guys are doing in the final 6?
Yeah, for us it's three things really. I think it's we want to get results because you want to be entering the playoffs in the best possible position. You want to be entering the playoffs with momentum and confidence. The second part is we want to have clarity just within our group, continued clarity, because as I've said before, a knockout tournament is a little bit different than a regular season, for example. Just details and things like that we need to be mindful of as we're going down these final 8 games, so that those become our behaviors every single game that we're playing it with the mentality of this is a knockout game. Every play matters, and we're dealing with every play with that kind of intensity and respect. The last is that we want to use our group, our roster, make sure everybody's ready. Obviously, with guys getting healthy, new additions, things like that, there's a lot of choices to be made, and we've got to make sure that we keep everybody fresh, everybody healthy, that we make use of everybody, and we also find the best combinations, both with and without the ball, the best combinations that are going to help us be successful as we enter the playoffs. And that's those are the things that we got to accomplish here down the last 8 games. And I think that's probably what most teams are doing. Some probably have some clarity because they've had all their guys around of a few things, but seeing how a guy like Marco is going to fit into our group, I have my thoughts and ideas, but until it actually plays itself out, we'll see exactly what that looks like, and amongst others, right? Getting Emmy back in, getting Dayon back in, things like that. So getting guys back to their top form too is going to be important.
Are they available?
Garce is not available. He'll start training with the team, I believe, on Monday, so that'll put him probably back in the mix. Dayon is extremely close to be a little bit of a decision tomorrow on his availability for anything. probably give him one more week because he hasn't really had like full training sessions to build into this, and he's had a little time off, but he's put in an incredible amount of work just to get himself into a good spot. So now I feel like he just needs some training time with the team to really be ready to step in there. So probably not this weekend, but I know he'll be ready for St. Louis if everything keeps moving the way it is.
Might Audie be ready in another week, or is he?
Julian won't be. He hasn't really been on the field doing high intensity stuff yet. So he is a week to 2 weeks. Yeah, probably. So I would say not likely for St. Louis, but coming out of the next one, I think he would be ready. But we'll go day to day. Yeah.
Could you be approaching the thought of probably shutting him down?
No, I don't think so. It not to get too far into it, but it's just some residual sensation that he's still having. That's not uncommon. They dealt with, there was 3 different types of pain. 2 of them completely gone. 1 still lingering around. And it's just making sure that we manage that. Nobody feels like it's anything extraordinary. It's just something that before we ramp him up into high intensity stuff, we want to make sure that we have that has calmed down before we go into the next thing. But I haven't heard anything of concern, more of just process. So.
Greg, when it comes to that plan about incorporating Marco, what does it look like? What have you seen so far? Those interactions with the group, and of course, like his hierarchy and what having a player like that does to the group.
Yeah, just having him around, I think the whole group, the level of concentration, intensity goes up. I also think it's the timing of the year that requires that from everybody. We see his quality in certain actions, whether it's just finishing. I don't think he's missed the goal since he's been here. So again, one chance, one goal. That's sometimes the difference between great players and good players. And again, just intelligence in terms of the way he moves around the field and manipulates, intelligence on the defensive side of how he takes certain things away, kind of doing more than one task at the same time is just shows you a high level of intelligence. I think he's still settling in, and he's quickly connecting with the group, but in terms of his voice and leadership, I feel like he's trying to get himself going before he starts to show some of that. But just the presence side of it is impacts the group. Just his presence here has impacted the group in a positive way. So he's a team guy, in every way. So I think that's been easy for him. I think the way we play and what we're asking is easy for him because it's in terms of integration. And I think like everybody, it's going to be, as he starts to play games, it's just going to be kind of understanding the nuances of our league versus where he was before, because our games sometimes have a tendency to get stretched, a little bit of end-to-end sometimes. So it'll just be things that he'll be working through, but I don't see that as being an issue. Again, over time, with more training, more games, it's going to be his relationship with other players that will continue to develop and form. We know where we would like to get him the ball. We know what we would like him to do with the ball. We know how we would like to defend with him in the mix. So it's just going to be a little bit of a process of integrating all those things.
What's a realistic timeline then?
Within the next week. Well, if miracles happen, maybe this weekend. Come on, help us out. Do your thing. If not next week, then he'll be. Yeah. There you go. If not next week, he'll be ready to start integrating into games. And we'd like to do that as quickly as we can get the visa process done and everything. And we think, again, from a fitness standpoint, I don't know if he's 90 minutes there, but he's a guy that quickly gets fit. He's always taking care of himself, so I'm not overly concerned to that, other than him feeling ready and comfortable to go longer stretches of games.
In your experience in MLS now with the second edition of the League's Cup, the fact that we had 4 MLS clubs standing in the semifinals, is that a testament to the level, or is it a little bit of the Mexican teams are in a disadvantage because of the format, or what's your opinion?
Well, I think it's both. I think it's all of the above. I think the competitive level of the 2 leagues is balancing out, and then because of that, little things matter a lot, right? Playing home versus being away, being on the road a little bit. Whatever those little things are will be the difference between wins and losses. It's not as much salary and having 20 good players versus maybe MLS teams have 14 good players like that. I don't think those things play as big a role as maybe they once did. I think us being mid-season and them being 4 or 5 games in the season, those things, while they seem maybe little, are big things because the differences are smaller now than they've ever been, in my opinion. And I say that as across the board when it comes to MLS teams. I mean, look at a team like Philadelphia, Colorado, Colorado's had a solid season. Philly hasn't had a great season, but they've had a great run in the tournament. And so, again, that shows you in our league the parity that a team gets in momentum and gets in good form, they can get results. And I think that's how they can also get results against teams from Mexico or anywhere else. They find a rhythm because the difference is the gap between the teams is just not that big. And now that's where we're at. It'll be interesting to see how the tournament continues to evolve to try to balance out maybe some of those things. I imagine that the Federation and or Mexican clubs are going to want something that balances them out. They're not going to be comfortable with us having 4 MLS teams. They're going to want to have a better showing than they've had, and they will fight for what I've seen in Champions League. They'll fight for every detail that will help them to balance that out. And so I'm really curious to see how this tournament continues to evolve because it's a good tournament and we enjoy it. It's just for us, I think in our league, is where does this really fit in our calendar because it's awkward stopping and now we're picking up again. So I think all these things have to be figured out, but I like the concept a lot.
It compresses that first half of the season too so badly.
Yeah, it compresses. Then you stop and you're trying to, build momentum into the last part of your season. You're trying to win games. There's a lot. I think it's great. I just don't know exactly where the best fit. For teams that are healthy, they're going into this tournament and having 5-6 extra games isn't that big of a deal. That's one thing. If teams are trying to get healthy down the stretch, maybe it's good because the window gives you a chance to get guys healthy, but it also means that maybe you're not ready to win this event. I also, just for the record, I didn't like the seeding of the tournament. If we win our group, we shouldn't be traveling to play a team that lost their group, and because we saw home field advantage, even within MLS teams, was a factor in this tournament. And so I think there's things to figure out.
Well, yeah, and just mentioning Colorado, they kind of changed who they are in this tournament, and we're able to succeed through that because we're playing the Mexican teams. We can't do what we do because the Mexican teams will carve us up, and
Sure.
that was an interesting thing to see in this tournament.
Yeah, I think it's good, but I think the things with teams like Colorado, not to speak too much about them, but they're a team that doesn't necessarily want to have a ton of the ball. And the question is, are they going to press you high, or are they going to sit a little lower and play you in the transition? So I think they did adjust in nuances of things that they were doing to try to give themselves an advantage in the tournament, which is smart by Chris and the way they approached it. And I think we have to think about those things too, because it's fun playing some of the Mexican League opponents because they do things sometimes differently than our groups. There are details that maybe they take care of a little bit differently than the teams that we play with. And so that's why I think all of us love playing these games, because we see each other so much that this is just a whole different kind of flavor of a game and different way of having to deal with stuff. And that's why I think from the players to staff and everyone, most people really enjoy the competition aspect of this against them.
Going back to Marco, he does have a history of being susceptible to injuries. In what ways do you guys have to gird against that? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I think, for one, he has to stay professional and which he is in terms of his day-to-day and his routines and the things that help him to stay healthy. For us is working with him and collaborating with him on, whether it's our loads. He loves to play. He's one of the first guys out, and he's one of the last guys to leave the field in terms of he likes to train. He wants to do everything. It's just making sure we find the balance of all of those things. And that's it. Just you got to do all the right things and cross your fingers and hope that no situations that make him vulnerable arise. But there's not that with every player. You can't do everything. You got to do the things you can do.
And lastly, you talked about Marco, one chance, one goal. So I got a philosophical question for you.
That's why I appreciate Scott's questions.
Yeah,
and we're philosophers.
Yes, exactly.
Sometimes, not always.
We can think on the
sometimes,
same term. And I'm going to go back to a conversation I had with April Heinrichs 20 years ago, where we were talking about, and this was talking about the women's national team, and she said, I asked her, what's the difference between the U.S. and Germany? That was when Germany was about to win their World Cup. She said, it takes us 5 chances to score. It takes Germany 3 chances. And the difference is culture. Because soccer is so embedded in the German culture as opposed to the German soccer culture,
Right.
that there's this understanding and this feeling with it that I would think of my generation, and maybe yours too, since I'm about a generation above you, we felt about baseball in that it was almost like osmosis. The little tiny things, they came naturally. You played in France, so you saw a lot of foreign players there. How much does culture play into that ability to just be more free, more fluid?
It's interesting because I don't think it is through osmosis of culture in which players are better finishers or more efficient. What I would say is they're probably through looking at our past. I think it comes through the training environment, the attention to detail on every single finish that I would put that more in their culture, and not necessarily how they've developed players, how their players have developed, the attention to detail when it comes to finishing, and the obsession with putting the ball in a spot in the best finish with this technique, and seeing that probably from the players you admired in your culture who are just world-class finishers, and seeing that and then the relentlessness of replicating that in the training environment, to the coaches demanding this finish, this spot, that spot, and not accepting anything below hitting that spot. And I think when you look at German culture and the way efficiency is a huge part of what their culture is, right? And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about technical efficiency as a finisher, for example. And I think that to me is probably more of the connection from a cultural standpoint than anything else, you know. And I've been on our fields in the United States at the youth level and everywhere else, and I think our attention to detail when it comes to the final action and isn't always as precise as it should be. We like a good chance, but we're not saying, oh, this chance should be right-footed with this type of finish in this spot, and now we're going to hit 20 of them, and you're going to hit it every single time. Now, this ball with this finish goes to that spot, and it's going to be 20 of them. We're going to hit it every single time. Left foot, right foot, all these. And I just feel like that level of detail is kind of their thing, you know?
Do we need that detail?
For sure. If we want to develop nines who are clinical finishers, and it's not just that, it's now you got to do that under pressure. How do you find your spot? How do you deal with multiple variables inside of the game, not just you and the ball and the crosser? Now you got a defender. Now you got to find your gap, and all these kinds of things that I feel like we're moving in that direction. I think our development system and the way we're working with players now across our country is getting us there. And the role models that we are now looking at as young players are that we're seeing them. Like when our young players come out and they watch some of our guys in the finishing exercises or in the small-sided games, they have a different feel and appreciation maybe for detail that you don't necessarily always see just watching it on TV, where you see one guy finish one play. So I think we're making that progress. I think those countries are just a little bit ahead of us in some of those things, and have been, which is why they are where they are, and why we're getting to where those countries are. So that's process as well.
And we'll wrap on Zoom with Josh and Alex.
Hey, Thaz, thanks for being patient. Yeah.
No, my question won't be nearly as philosophical as Scott's, but approaching the break, and whenever you guys go into the break, we talked about the compressed schedule, and then we've also looked at just how the team health-wise sort of approached that, right? And how you guys maybe struggled to sort of get into that Leagues Cup break and that type of thing. Do you feel like the health of the club now through this little tiny break has improved to a point where the last 8 games and playoffs make it an easier thing to accomplish?
I'd say we're a lot closer. You know, getting Marco is not a health issue; he's a visa issue. But we moved a couple players in the process of trying to get Marco in, which made us a touch thinner for the short term. But now we add another player of high quality. Getting Dayon is just so close. Once he's actually in, then I would say we're a little step closer. Emmy is a week away, I would say. So we're right on the edge of that. But I also say the games now are one a week, a break, so we do have a chance to play a game, recover, get some guys, integrate them back in, play another game, and they're not coming as fast and furious as we were seeing over the summer months. So I think we're in a good spot, and I think we are, over the next 2 weeks, we'll be in a great spot in terms of not just everybody healthy, but guys being reintegrated back into the group and the team through the training environment and through some match minutes.
And does that go for the guys, not even considering the what we'll call the big injuries, the ones that we just discussed, but all the guys who were probably carrying stuff going into the break or everything else?
Yeah, yes, because those guys, the guys who were carrying little things, we've tried to address those during this time period. At the same time, last week we had Phoenix come out and we played a 11v11 game against Phoenix because we also wanted to keep our rhythm going. So trying to find the balance inside of these 2 weeks to, again, help the health of little things, close some of the gaps on the guys who have been in big spaces, but also try to keep the bulk of the group in rhythm and progressing forward. So I know everyone, like these longer breaks, whether they're international breaks, of which we have one coming up again, and this one, they're kind of annoying because there's so many training sessions and you don't have that thing that you're really focused on. But I thought the group did a really good job of trying to stay focused on the things that we want to tighten up as we move down the stretch. So, and then moving guys along health-wise, as you said.
Thanks, Greg.
Everyone come out of Phoenix healthy?
Yeah.
And to wrap with Alex.
Hey Greg, thank you for your time. Last 8 games here, you guys are undefeated at Dignity Health Sports Park. How important is it to keep the top spot in the West, have home field advantage throughout the playoffs? Is that the goal? Thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, we want to be in the best position possible as we enter the playoffs. All home games is the best position possible. With our fans and with the guys in this stadium this year, we've done really well. And so I think there's a lot of confidence now and a lot of energy when we play games here in our stadium, and you want as much of that as you can when you're in the knockout phases of any tournament or anything. You want to be at home, and so that's the objective. That's why kind of in my order of things I put getting results is a big part of this final stretch of 8 games, because it does ensure you with the best sort of playoff positioning and the best hopefully environment here at home.
Yeah, and then just real quickly, what's the availability for Novak Mitrovic? Wasn't in the 21 or 22 in the last game?
Novak has been training with the group. He won't be available on Saturday, and then he'll be fully reintegrated in the group going into St. Louis.
What's the situation?
Thank you, Greg.
All right, you got it. Thanks.
Thanks,
What's
Greg.
the situation?